Oh, he tried to clear that out. Oh, my God, did he knock that in? Wow, that's a skill shot, everybody.
What's up, y'all? You're watching Brooklyn Shuffleboard, and we are out here for the finals of the Q4 New York Shuffleboard Association Advanced Bracket Monthly Knockout Tournament thing that we've been doing. You're about to watch the finals. It's me up against Chris Green. It should be a really fun match. Winner gets $150. Since I'm playing, I'm going to be leaving you in more than capable hands with some heavy hitters. We got Abby on commentary. She just won the other advanced bracket of the Q4 tournament thing. And we got Missy the Missile Keiko, who is the #1 female shuffleboard player in the world. So they're going to walk you through shuffleboard strategy. You're going to learn about shot selection, how to adjust the drift. You're going to watch an amazing shuffleboard match. It's going to be a blast. Subscribe if you haven't already, and get ready for a fun one. Let's do it.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Brooklyn Shuffleboard. We got Missy here and
Abby. Excited to debut. My first time doing some commentary and excited to be here with you, Missy.
So we got a match coming up. It's between Jeff and Jeff Sev, who's your host, and Chris Green. They're playing a 16-frame match. They'll switch halfway through, and it's yellow, black, black, yellow format. And that's like just how they're playing that game. Sorry.
As we start up, a little bit of info from our players. Jeff and Chris have both been in the league for quite a while. Jeff for about 10 years and Chris for about 8. Chris is a player on Tang Bus, and Jeff, of course, is a player on the Golden Tangs.
The Golden Tangs.
And so we've got some experience here between the two of them, and we're really excited to see them kick this match off.
Yeah, really. So they're starting the first frame here. Yeah, these are two OG players who have had multiple wins under their belt from their team, not only from their teams, but also individually. So yeah, they've started the first frame now. Chris is going up with a block. It looks like they're stretching it out. They're warming up. You can see them kind of bending before they take shots. It looks like the option that Jeff is going for here is a hide. And he makes it. Oh, but it looks very close to the line. He's going to get up there. All right, George is helping out. George from NYSA stepping in to check the point. He's calling it in, but he's going to do the due diligence of checking it with the flashlight.
I love the commitment.
Oh, not in, not in. What's interesting is they don't have like a first and second call, so they could go over and look at it more closely. But I guess Jeff's just taking George's thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we know Court 4 is a little bit funny out here with the drift. So they're probably taking some time here in the first couple of frames to also sort of see how the drift is reading, getting a little bit more familiar with it. If you've played on Court 4, you know. If you know, you know.
Ooh, did you see how that biscuit drifted in? So Jeff was going for the same shot, trying to separate those two and get an 8-point and a 7-point, or even just one of them on the board. But it drifted so far in because it was going really slow. It just drifted towards that line. We know that that's not what he wanted. So Chris is going down the side to try to get a point, hide it from Jeff. He made that good 7. It's a nice shot from Chris.
Great shot.
What would you think about doing here, Abby, if you were Jeff on this last shot, knowing you got that one close to the line and the other one hugging that middle line?
I think it's possible Jeff goes in here towards these 2 black discs and hopes that he can still make 2 to still go up on his hammer, just because he can't really get to that 7 over there. So let's see what he does.
And he's lining up. You know, he can't really get to Chris's, so that's not even an option. All right. Oh, he touched it, though. Interesting. So he got an 8 and a 7, and Chris kept his in, so he's got a 7 as well. So it's now 15-7. That was a great shot from Jeff. I think he was definitely trying to split them, but you never know if it's going to go in your favor. So,
yeah, and I think the way that Chris's disc slid towards that center line shows that it was a really good opportunity to take, because had he bumped the yellow disc over to the center line, he would have made out with 2 scores there. So he definitely really thought that through and went for that shot.
Interesting enough, something right here that they're both doing that you shouldn't do in shuffleboard. It's kind of unofficial here, but their biscuits aren't all the way in the box. If you were playing in Florida right now, you could call each other out and get penalized by 5 points.
Yikes, after all that experience I said they had.
But here at the Royal Pumps, we don't really do that here. We don't penalize for like being on the line, but you can tell that they're not trying to hide disc here. They're just playing the game, and it's a little on the line, so they're not worried about it. So, all right, so Jeff, you know, this shot that he just took, he took advantage of that hide, trying to hide behind there. But as we saw it, it drifted far out. So Chris has a line on it, and he's going to try to hit it. And he knocked it out. Knowing Jeff, he might try to do the same shot again, but adjust. His two options here are to hide again or, clear that block, but I don't know if that he wants to do that.
Well, and something Jeff has taught me in my couple years of playing is like going for the same shot when you can helps you warm up to that shot. So because he hit that shot the first time, trying it again, but trying to get a little bit more hit in the second time is helping to like build the reps of that shot. So I think that's probably what he was going for there too.
Yeah, and you can tell he was adjusting, but this court has some varied drifts, so he hit it just ever so slightly because he was trying to hide behind it. He's lining up for this shot. His options are to go on the board or to block it up. And it looks like it's on the line, so Chris has an open-ish right side, and it looks like he's going to probably shoot on that right side. And he shoots. And
looks
good.
Oh.
I couldn't see for a
The
second.
dreaded 7-8 line.
Yeah. It's funny, when we're sitting back here, I couldn't really see for a second, so I was like, is it good? It told me. I don't know. All right, so it's still 15-8. 15 Jeff.
15-7.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good.
15-7. That's why we write it down. I know sometimes I've made a mistake where I'm off by 1 point for the score, and I truly don't mean to do that, but it does happen. All right, so Jeff's putting up a block. Not quite a St. Pete. Let's see. So they're on their third frame. They don't need to be too aggressive yet. They're still feeling out the court and trying to see what the drift's like. What would you be thinking about here, Abby, on the third frame?
Yeah, so I think, Chris went for the clear. It's early. We're playing some really classic shuffleboard here. Unfortunately, he sticks it, and so Jeff is, of course, going to take this hide, really lining up from that spot. It's looking smooth, looks good.
Ooh.
It is beautifully tucked behind that hide.
That's grade 8.
So now Chris has got sort of a tough choice here. He clears the blocker, which is a great call. So now we can see how Jeff's blocking is here on this 8. Chris's hope, of course, is that the block isn't as good as the previous one and that he'll be able to get around it.
Yeah, some people, they'll actually, depending on how the game's going, they'll put 2 on the board, 1 on the right, 1 on the other side, and so they have 2 to basically 2 points, knowing Chris might not be able to clear one of them. But it's a little risky because then they could try to kitchen you, or you might not make that point, and then they got an open score they can just knock off.
Yeah, I think that's one of the debates a lot that people have is like when you have a score up, do you go for the block or do you go for the double score? And I'm always thinking about like who has the hammer, because with Chris having the hammer here, even if your scores are there, if he can replace it or replace and kitchen it, that can be really tricky. So I think that's the way I'm always thinking about that debate.
So in that shot, Chris cleared it out. He did keep it, there's like a block up there, but it's in his favor. But Jeff's, interesting. Jeff shot behind it still. He made that 8. It looks beautiful. And Chris is like, all right, now what do I do?
What would you do?
Well, here, I guess there's some options here. You could just go on the left side. It's on the open side with the 8 and 7. That's what I would do. And that looks like what he did. And the reason that's what I do, so we got 8 black, 8 black, yellow 7. I would have done the same thing Chris did. Sometimes when something's really well hidden, you just can't get to it, and you got to minimize that by just scoring it on the other side.
Yeah, I think something like that is, a moment where a lot of newer shuffleboard players, we get really stuck with wanting to get that disc out of there. I myself am guilty of it. You get really hyper fixated on getting that out and not considering the options of just matching the score on the other side. So I think Chris was able to stay really level-headed in that moment and just go for the points, and it worked out.
Yeah, so we're on the 4th frame here. It looks like Chris put up a St. Pete. Jeff's clearing it out. He's ahead, so he just wants to keep the board clear so he can, hit his hammer at the end. Chris is going for another block, and Jeff's lining up. So they're probably just going to do the classic, clear, 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 and then hammer. Well, we'll see what Chris does on the last shot, but Chris, he really wants Jeff to mess up here so he could potentially hide and gain those points back. But he still has a lot of frames to make up for these points that he's just down by 9.
I like Chris's strategy here to try different blocks in different places. I think it's really important to try to make them chase your blocks, because if you give them the same St. Pete 3 discs in a row, they're going to get really good at clearing it. And so as we can see in this moment, I think because Chris took that opportunity to put the blocks in different places, it can often throw off your opponent and maybe trip up their clear game because they're shooting in different areas of the court and trying to read the drift in a lot of different areas.
Ooh, and he got that 7. That's beautiful. That's exactly what he wanted. And yeah, you made me think about it too, Abby. This is really only frame 4, and while these are both talented shuffleboard players. They're reading the court the whole time, but Jeff hadn't cleared up top yet, so he missed it, and he missed that hammer. So now they're getting closer to even. We got 7 for yellow, so that's a total of 21 to 23 now. So only a 2-point game. So if you were playing right now, Abby, what would you be thinking if you're Chris?
I think, that was a really strong frame from Chris, so I hope he's holding on to that, his frame 4, as he goes into frame 5, and feeling really good going into this. I think now he's probably going to hold on to those strategies he just tried. For instance, moving the blocks around, making Jeff chase him. We saw Jeff unfortunately miss that clear. Chris, as a seasoned player, he's going to hold on to that. So he is throwing up that first block, sticking with sort of that traditional shuffleboard strategy we have here, and let's see how Jeff's clear is here.
Ooh, and he stuck that clear.
Thank you.
We're going to have someone run onto the court to clear that off. Yeah, it bounced back. We can't have that on the court, so.
So, unfortunately, with Jeff's clear sticking, Chris is now going to go for this hide, which is looking good. Nice shot from Chris.
Yeah, and if you remember when Jeff shot earlier, remember how to drift it towards the middle line?
Yeah.
So while he kind of has a clear shot to this, he's got to be really careful because he can't hit that block, but he also can't let it drift too far to the center line. But he got it perfectly.
That was excellent. You make a great point. It was really great aim to be able to balance, not going too far left, his left to hit the block, and not too far right where it would drift too much to the center line. So he nailed that.
And sometimes the drift will take it more the slower you're going. So if he sent that too slow, it probably would have drifted more towards that center line. So Chris didn't make the hide that time. He seems kind of annoyed by that. I probably would be too. You're like, I just made that shot. How did I, Oh,
wow.
Going for the kitchen.
Interesting.
No.
Early in the game, I think, for me to be going for that kitchen. But if he's feeling the speed and he felt the moment, you got to go for it, whatever's feeling right in that moment. And it wasn't far off, so he's going to probably be honing in on that kitchen speed in the next few frames, I imagine, so that if he needs it, he can use it. And
the courts don't seem too slow today. So, sometimes when you do something like that, you don't want to accidentally hit it too softly and then it ends up 7 and a point for Chris. So Jeff's got this last shot. It looks like he's going to go for the open side of the board. So he's lining up. He's going to shoot cross court. And he shoots. And it's good. Good 8. He needed that thumbs up because he just hit the line going the other way. So, but yeah, that's a good 8. And something I was thinking about when I was asking, if you were Chris, what you'd be thinking is, when you're at that 4th frame and you kind of tied it back up, you're kind of like, we still got a lot of frames to play this game. I feel like the big check-in is halfway through the game. But sometimes it's tied up and you're just like, all right, we're going to play, So.
Agreed. I think the thing about waiting to sort of feel that at halfway through is that then you're swapping colors. And so thinking about the color advantage and those things, I think that might be why they're both sort of playing, a little bit differently, like Jeff going for the kitchen this early is they're getting confident on their color and they're trying to use that while they can. And so here Jeff went for a bit of a block. It was a little bit wide, but Chris was able to clear it and get both discs off pretty easily. Jeff's lining up for his next shot.
He shoots. It looks a little bit in. You can tell Chris is kind of thinking about what he wants to do here. You're probably just going to clear it. You want to make your hammer. And it wasn't a grade Tampa or anything, so it looks like Chris cleared it. That one's hanging on for dear life, though, in the corner. I actually love when that happens.
Same.
I think it's hilarious. And I feel like it should be extra points or something, like 5 points for the one hanging off the edge.
A little bonus there.
All right, clear, just classic clear game. Chris wants this hammer. So let's see what Jeff does here, though. He might just block it up. I don't remember exactly which side Chris has been clearing on, but that's something I would be thinking, or not clearing, but shooting on. I would be thinking about that, like which side hasn't he shot on yet? I want to make him shoot on that side. That's something you could also do here if you put up a block. All right, so he shoots, and he gets it. Good 7 from Chris. So something I was thinking about as they're playing is we're about to have a new singles league launch. We're actually very close to 100 members, almost. We were at 97 when I was coming into the Palms today. But we're going to have some more games like this coming up that are probably going to be pretty crazy. You're signed up, right?
I am. I'm signed up. I believe Jeff and Chris are both in. Missy, you're also in.
Yeah.
We've got Schnapp on the list. We have really got an exciting list of players. We've got some staff with Nick. We've got Nibs coming in this
Nibs
season.
playing.
So pretty exciting to see such engagement. And we hope that we'll get to do some more of these matches, some more commentary, and get them out there for y'all to watch.
So I'm really excited. I know I'm signed up. I actually really need to practice, but I took a little break after during the holidays, so I got to come in and practice. So so Chris missed that clear. Jeff's lined it up to try to hide behind it. And if you remember, this is the same area he was shooting before, so I think he has a good chance of making it. Ooh, it slowed down, and it drifted towards that center line. If I'm Chris, I think you're safe to just try to clear this out. And that's what looks like he's shooting for. Ooh, he makes it, and he leaves his disc on, which, if Jeff's going for the kitchen, that could be a problem. Sometimes players are there's some players here, if you give them anything, they're going to go for the kitchen. They're going to go for it. Doesn't look like Jeff's doing that. He's lining up to shoot cross court again. So he shoots. Ooh, it's a little fast. No, it hit that line.
What are your thoughts on that last shot, Missy, as far as going for that hide versus taking away the split opportunity, potentially, or even like a roll situation on the next shot?
Oh, interesting. So I don't think that's what Chris was going for, considering he just threw his hand. I think he was just going for a clear.
I think so too.
That was pretty fun to watch. But he made that 7, so now he's got that 7 on there, and this is something that Jeff might try to kitchen here.
That's what I was thinking.
It's so close to that back line, and he already went for a shot similar to this. Yeah, he's shooting the speed for kitchen. Oh, and he got it.
Got it.
Nice shot. So we got 2. We got the -10 yellow and 7 black, and that 7 black is pretty well hidden by that top block.
And that kitchen is in there deep.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Chris went for that clear. You could kind of see it coming. It looked like it was going to hit it straight on, and that's not what he wanted. He wanted to get that out of there.
Yeah, that specific kitchen shot there really worked out in Jeff's favor because, like you said, with the black disc being super hidden and then the kitchen being really deep, it was going to be really difficult to get either of those out of there. And so we've got a little bit of a point differential there since Chris wasn't able to make any of that back on his hammer. And so now they're going into the final frame on these colors. Chris is playing yellow with 18, and Jeff is playing black with 38. So we have a 20-point differential here. And in Chris's first shot, he goes on the board with a 10.
Yeah.
And so Jeff is obviously going to go for this. It's in deep enough that he could clear it, he could replace it. Went for the clear, but left it there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think so too. I think it was going for the clear. But they hadn't really shot in that 10 area, so I think it was left kind of similar to that clear he was trying to go for earlier and just didn't make it. So and also when you're going hard in an area, he was trying to do a hard clear, so it just stuck. Ooh, Chris is going for that hide. Oh, I don't know. It looks from here not in. Okay.
We're getting a no good call from Smooth Susan at the head of the court.
Nice. Is that an unofficial nickname or is?
I think it's at least Discord official.
Oh, okay. All right.
Not sure how official that is, but
I like it. Oh, he tried to clear that out. Oh my God, did he knock that in? Wow, that's a skill shot, everybody. Our first skill shot of the night. All right, so
What's interesting, though, is there's something there in the drift because that's the same spot where Jeff went for the clear, and it went a little left more than he thought it was going to. So we should, whoever's playing black should be keeping that spot on their radar because there's something weird happening there in the court.
yeah, that's a really great point, Abby. I think I'm just like, that last frame, I was just so like, whoa. That last, like, knocking that -10 in, I was just so like, whoa, what is happening? All right, so Jeff's blocking it up. That's a very smart move and probably what I would do as well.
Agreed.
So this is tough for Chris. It's like you can't really see that you're down 20 and that's another -10. So honestly, the options are really difficult here.
A lot of players would be really tempted here to go for some sort of like combo shot, right? To try to hit the black disc back into the yellow disc. At least get the kitchen out. Maybe something else happens. I like to remind everybody that, a 16-frame game, there's a lot of time to come back here, and it's important to, like, really stay in the game, really stay level-headed here. I think he's probably just going to go for points.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I was thinking, too, a little bit of damage. I'm calling it, like, damage control, meaning, like Chris really wants Jeff not to score in this next frame because then that's even more points that he's down because – like you said, he still has a lot of time, but you're kind of like trying to stop him from scoring so it's not as bad.
What would your thoughts have been on like a high 8 there from Chris?
I think that's what I would have went for.
Yeah.
I would have went on the board. Jeff hasn't really kitchened down there, so it's just the -10. So we'll finish this thought, but yeah, I probably would have gone for a high 8, not a high 7, because then Jeff might try to like kitchen that. But I would have tried for a high 8. I think that would have been more my vibe. What about you?
I think I would have done the same thing. I think the fear there is, of course, you overshoot it, you give them a backboard for the 8. So I think like going for the high 8, maybe erring on the side of caution. It looked like he went for a block to just keep Jeff from scoring, but it's possible it was just a little short.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back with Shuffleboard very shortly. See you soon. All right, and we're back. We're starting off with the warm-up shots. You didn't see that in the first round, but Jeff's doing his warm-up shots since they switched colors. We do that here at the Palms every time. Actually, every time you play shuffleboard, you get to warm up. Depending on how many warm-up shots you get is depending on each place, but you get to warm up 4 going this way, 4 going back. Sometimes in Florida, for example, where we play there, in more official tournaments, you get 2 for speed, 4 to warm up, and then 4 again to warm up with. It's always great when you get more warm-ups because you get to see the court more.
Yeah, so everyone's strategy for warm-ups, of course, is a little bit different. I usually encourage newer players to sort of aim for like the 8s and 7s so that they can practice their hammer shots. And also, think through how it's drifting so that when it comes down to your hammer, you feel comfortable shooting. But you'll see that more seasoned players try a lot of different things. Chris right now, he's practicing putting up a St. Pete, shooting for some hides. He knows that's what he needs going into the second half of the match. So you'll see that everybody's strategy on their warm-up shots varies a little bit based on their experience, I would say, and what they feel like they need as they move forward.
Yeah, did you see how that one shot a little slow? Like, Chris was definitely trying to get on the board with that one. So I know that I would want to go look at that disc and see which one, or you might have known before you shot it, like, was that the third disc? Like, some of the discs have nice, like, little numbers on them, but some are, here at the Palms, sometimes it's like the color blue .1. But yeah, that was slow. So you want to remember that because you might have to shoot with that and you don't want to come up short. Naturally, some of the discs, they're slower than others, or you might have one that's like faster than the other. And you need to remember that because then if that's the difference of coming up short for your hammer or maybe going in the kitchen, right?
Yeah, and I think what we saw in the first half of the game and what we see from Jeff a lot is that he bends down and flips the discs over. He's always looking at the bottom of the biscuits to see if they're smooth, if they're chipped, thinking about which ones are going to be slower, faster, which ones might play more accurately. And so you see him do that a lot. I kind of stole that from him a while back, and now I do that in my play as well. And so we might see them doing that here in the second half as well.
And part of what you're looking for is sometimes there's like a chip out of the bottom, and that I've seen it either be slower because there's like friction happening, or it'll be faster because it's a lighter disc. You kind of just got to feel it out. But usually when there's a chunk at the bottom, you kind of want to note that, so you're like, oh, that one's going to act maybe differently. Yeah, I'm curious if I was playing, like, it seems like black is slower. Jeff didn't really make it seem that way, which was interesting. So he really adjusted if that's the case.
Well, and I think the benefit, if that is the case, that the black discs are slower, the benefit to Jeff having that first is there was nothing to compare it to. So it's harder to notice when that's what he's used to and that's what he started with. But when you start with the faster color and then move to the slower, or even vice versa, having to, seeing them try to adjust, I think is kind of what we're seeing Chris, work through right now.
Yeah. All right, so he's taking the last shot, and then they're going to get started on their game. We only have the 4 warm-up shots. And just a reminder, the score here is 38 Jeff and 8 Chris. So, I think we should talk about what Chris is probably thinking here, and then we can also talk about Jeff. But you're basically like, I want to score points. What are you thinking here, Abby?
Yeah, I think at this point, with the 30-point differential, I mean, like we mentioned before, there's a lot of shuffleboard here still. There's a lot of hammers and a lot of chances to steal hammers. But Chris may veer here from a little bit more of the traditional play, and he may go for that, like, fill-up strategy, if you will, so kind of coming down here and scoring in the 8 on his own side versus just going for the clear. He goes for the clear, and I think, he's got kind of a strategic role here. It went a little far. But I think he was hoping he'd be able to use that.
So interesting enough, so Jeff just stuck that. I think Chris is probably going to try to hide behind that. And I think, that's going to happen more in the first frame. And that's what I was going to say is, like, no one really knows the drifts very well yet. And I was going to say if I was Chris, I'd actually probably be maybe even going on the board. Or I know he has the hammer, but, like, I don't think so. But I might be trying the board because Jeff doesn't know it well yet, and he might mess up and, like, give me a double score. But I'm only going to do that in the first frame and switching colors.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think if I had been Chris in the first shot, I think I would have gone for an 8 on his own side of the board. But it'll be interesting to see sort of how his thought process progresses through the rest of these frames, now that we've switched colors and he's getting a little bit more familiar. Right now he's really thinking through this shot. I imagine he's considering all of the options, and what he goes for is trying to clear out that black disc that was on the kitchen line. The last thing he wants right now is for Jeff to kitchen him. Unfortunately, his disc also stuck there, and so that leaves that same opportunity open, but Jeff goes here, looks like he went for a block potentially, and it was just a bit short, but Chris has got a pretty open board here for his hammer.
Yeah, and so we haven't talked about what Jeff's doing here. So it's open for Chris. He's going to go for a shot, and he's going to try to score on that side, probably for an 8, just because 10s are always, they can be hard to get consistently. So he shoots, he hits the line. That's such a bummer. So part of Jeff's strategy here is he needs to protect the lead. He has 30 points, and, Chris is going to do everything he can to climb back. So he's not putting that disc, that block that we just saw, really close to the board, because I've seen people kitchen it. Like, they're like, I need 10 points. I'm going to kitchen that same Pete block. Some people even specialize in it. Like here, I feel like Nelson does that. And, like, I don't do it. Do you ever try to kitchen a same beat? Or is it like last case scenario?
That would be like absolute last case, like last frame of the game for me. But I will say in my team league matches lately, I have seen other teams kitchen our St. Pete's at least 2 to 3 times just in the last couple weeks. And so you're right. I think people are practicing that and trying it. And so Jeff's keeping that in mind, and he doesn't want to leave anything anywhere near that opportunity.
Yeah. And I think here so we'll focus back on the frame at hand, but Chris is putting up some blocks. I think he's hoping for Jeff to mess up and then be able to hide behind it. Interesting, not going on the board. Oh, he went on the board with that one, so he's got an 8. I think I might be doing some more board game play. Maybe one block, and then, like, if he clears it, just, like, go on the board. I think you still got a lot of frames, but, like, you kind of got to be a little more risky, in my opinion.
That's how I like to think about it too. Even down at this point, I would still be trying one block, like you said, at the hope that he sticks it. And we have seen some stick. We've seen Jeff miss a couple of blocks here. So I would have tried that and then started to go on the board as well. Unfortunately, that shot for Chris did not work how he was hoping. And now we have Jeff with an 8 on the board and a hammer that is pretty open, and he nails it in the 8 on his own side.
Wow, so that's 16 points, yellow. Yeah, that's a bummer. You know, that those discs are going slow, and I think he was trying to keep his disc in, so that's why, you know, he hit Jeff's, but his went off the board, but then Jeff stayed in. So it was kind of not, he wanted Jeff's to go off and his to stay in, you know?
Definitely. And so now we're looking at a bit more of a differential here. We've got Jeff with 54 points and Chris with 8 points. But there are still quite a few frames left here. And so now it looks like Chris is adapting the strategy we were talking about a bit more, is like at this point, he's going on the board. Something I think about with this shot is Jeff is a lot more likely to stick these clears if Chris keeps it more to the center of the board. And so that's probably what Chris was thinking there with aiming for the midline, thinking there's more room here for Jeff to potentially make a mistake and stick this. And I think he's going to stick with that strategy a little bit. We're seeing the drift is pulling it into the center, but if that's the way Chris is thinking, it might be helping him out here to just keep things on the board.
Yeah, and I'd be doing the same thing. I think I might try to vary it a little bit, though. Like, do that middle line. Chris, you know, like, did that, but then Jeff cleared it. I think I would have went on the 7-8, where it's also a little weird, like where Jeff was, like, trying to kitchen people. I think I try to vary it a little bit more, but that's just me. Oh, wow, it's really just not working out for him. I think he was trying to kitchen that, but just
definitely. I think that was the right call. I think you got to go for it. It got left out there, and at this point, I think you have to take it. And so I think he definitely was going for the right thing. I think, you know, he hasn't quite adjusted to the black discs yet. And so, unfortunately, he rolled that into the 7, and Jeff got a pretty solid block there with his 3rd disc. And so at this point, Chris is trying to think through if there's any way for him to get to that, with the drift, I think could be really tricky. And so it'll be interesting to see if he just puts up an 8 or 7, maybe close to that, so that it discourages Jeff from clearing it, or makes it a little more risky for Jeff to clear and knock out his own. An interesting shot there by Chris. I think sort of similar way of thinking. He wanted to keep it in the same area as Jeff's scoring disc, kind of making Jeff a little bit afraid to go for it. It's nice and close to a line, which is good, but it does look like Jeff is going to try to at least get that out of there, and he might even, you know, be able to replace that. As it's coming in, he was able to get the black disc off, but the yellow disc is also not good as it looks from here, but George is going to do a quick check.
Yeah, it
Jeff's
doesn't
gonna
look
peek
good.
at it too. And
No
so we
good.
just have the yellow 7 scoring on the board.
And I think part of what Jeff was doing there, too, was it was close to the line, so he wanted to kind of, like, tap his out and then keep his in, which Abby said I just, you know, like to reemphasize that. But, you know, he ended up almost on the line, which it doesn't always work out for you because it just hit it too hard. So, yeah, now the score is 61-8. So that's a pretty tough position to be in. You still have 5 frames left, so there is time, but there's a lot of points to be made up here. So Chris is definitely going on the board to play some kitchen bait. Jeff is just trying to clear this out. That's, you know, his strategy here is he wants to keep the lead. You know, he's even up by this many points, but there's still 5 frames left, so he wants to make sure to clear everything off so Chris doesn't have an opportunity to kitchen him.
Missy, when it gets to the point for kitchen bait in a game you're in, what is your typical shot and what is like your typical thought process? Are you going like absolute deep 7s? Are you also thinking 8s? Like, what is your best process there?
So I do love the middle line. I think people mess up there quite often when they're trying to clear it because we haven't really played the board there. Or you've played it there, but it's still difficult because there's sometimes weird drifts in the middle. But then I'll switch it up. I'll do a 7 on the right. I'll do a 7 on the left. You know, I'm moving all over the board because I want them to mess up. And sometimes it doesn't work out. People are just that good, and Chris just missed that hammer, which is a real bummer because he needs every point he can get. So
yeah, there's been a lot of that 7-8 line, which is of course just the most frustrating when you're shooting for your hammer. I think it happens to us a lot because we're thinking, you know, aim for the 8, 7's my backup, but ultimately we think that way, and then we hit that 7-8 line. It happens to me all the time. But yeah, definitely a bummer to see that for our friend Chris. And so Jeff is going out with, a pretty typical block. To our point earlier, I think he's trying to keep things as much away as he can. Unfortunately, Chris goes for some kitchen bait, and it is a bit long, and it slides right into the kitchen. So that black disc is in the 10 off here. That was quite a drifty shot there from Jeff.
I'm actually confused. I think he was just going for another block, right?
I think he was too, but the way it almost drifted towards the other block and then it still drifted in was pretty interesting. And so we're going to ask our friend George here to take a peek at these here. And so the one went off the back. Unfortunately, Chris's other disc is still in the kitchen. Chris has had some unlucky kitchens here that are super deep. And so something to think about, if you're a newer shuffleboard player watching, the deeper they're into the kitchen, of course, the more difficult they are to clear. And so it's always good to come down and see how deep that shot is. If the disc in the kitchen is closer to the 7 kitchen line, you have a much better chance of clearing it. That most recent yellow 8 in the high 8 is good. And so now Chris is thinking through his shots, knowing that he has the 10 off as well as Jeff's 8.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Actually, I think just because there were so many points, I might have just blasted Jeff's point and see if those two would have maybe ricocheted into mine. Because, I don't know. Well, now you got to try to go for the clear, and let's hope he gets it. Oh, that doesn't, yeah. There's got to be a weird drift there. I think there must be something going on there. Or it's just a mindset thing. You already shot twice and you missed it, and it's just hard to get, that third shot. But, I think maybe that's a really difficult part of the court because Chris is a really great player, and to miss that 3 times is there must be maybe some weird drift there.
Yeah. I think we're seeing that the black discs are posing a little bit of a challenge. Plus, you said, it's all about, the headspace there. Once you've self-kitchened and then you're trying to get it out, it can be really frustrating. I myself will usually go for it once, and then I end up going for, an 8 because I know that I'm going to get frustrated aiming for that shot, and so that's kind of my thought process there.
Yeah, that could have been an option there. He could have went on the board, and then it would have been 2 points. But it's just tough when you're down like that, and then you got another kitchen. So right now we got a point hidden by Chris, and he went on the board to try to, so Jeff doesn't mess with that. There'd be another one on the board, so he tried to clear that off. And Jeff's shooting. Looks like he's bumping. I can't tell what's in from here, so Jeff's going to take a look. He's walking down. It kind of looks like there could be 2 in, meaning the black in the back. Yeah, we got a black 7 in and a yellow 8. And I guess if I was Chris right now, I'd try to kitchen that yellow and score. And that's what he's going for. That one doesn't look in, but he's going to go check. This is interesting, right, Abby? It's there's 3 on the board. Jeff's got the hammer, though. So would you go for that point in the back?
Well, I think, like you said, this is an odd situation here because with 3 on the board, if Chris does some interesting bump with his last disc, we could see quite a few scores here. And so I think Jeff went to kind of block those opportunities from him and not really worry about the 7. At this point to Jeff, the 7, unfortunately it's not really worth a lot, based on the score currently. So I think he went for the safe call, whereas, he took away split opportunities and some double score opportunities. And so Chris has some choices here. The disc on the left there are from our left on Jeff's side. He could go for the kitchen on that yellow disc. He's thinking through probably if he can still use the drift in his favor to try and get 2 scores.
Yeah.
And at this point, it just, with 3 frames left, 2 frames after this, he's really thinking through the best way to get a lot of points, given the differential.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm at the point in this type of game, I might try to go for stuff just because I want to try. Okay, so he tried to go for that kitchen. He didn't make it. I don't know the drift offhand, but it could have been fun to go for that outside shot he was contemplating to basically split that one that's in the 8. Maybe you get the 8 and the 7. Oh, kind of like what Jeff just tried to do.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too when Chris sort of like slid to the right and stepped over to look at that. It looked like he was thinking about that split there as well.
I think it's just the 8 and the 7 in. I guess they're not giving us confirmation. Hold on. They're looking at the score, so. But there was a yellow 8 for sure and a black 7. So I'll write that down. Yellow 7, black 8. But it'd be great to know the score. I'll walk down there if we can't see it. What did you talk?
Yeah, so right now it looks like they are also just sort of reviewing the score, maybe making a little adjustment here to the scoreboard to make sure that the score is accurate. And so Missy's going to do a double check here on the score to make sure that we know what we're looking at heading into these last 2 frames. There were 3 discs in is the call we're getting now. And so let's hear from Missy what all was in so that we have that update before we head into the final or the last 2 frames.
So they said it's 84.5.
Sounds like the updated score is 84.5.
We had a black 7 in, and Jeff had that 7 and. Oh, I'm sorry. So the score is 84.5. Jeff did have both those discs in, so Chris had a 7, and it looks like Jeff had both the 8 and the 7. So now we're in the last frame, though. Or no, third to last frame, or second to last frame. I'm sorry. That point mishap kind of messed me up. I apologize. So we got 3 points in. I think they're just having a little fun right now, just scoring on the board. Jeff is just blocking it up, kind of with his points.
I think the good thing about singles matches, and we were talking earlier about our singles league coming up, is of course there is a point of the game where you get to a point where you worry about being able to make those points back. But right now, like for both players, they're both playing against an excellent shuffleboard player. They're here, they're getting these practice shots in, they're trying a few different things, learning a little bit of strategy from each other. And so I think to your point, right now they're trying some shots here. Unfortunately, Chris's shot goes a bit long and into the kitchen, but I think to your point, they're taking this opportunity to try some shots like a split and get those practice shots in while they're here and while they're enjoying the game. And so we have 5 discs in right now. Yellow's looking at 22 points, and black currently on the board has -3. And so we'll see what Chris does here.
And I was just kind of looking back at the score and the kind of pivotal points, and they were like neck and neck for a while. It was in frame 7 where Jeff, got that 20-point lead, and then in the next frame, in the last frame of the first half, it turned into a 30-point lead. And then once they switched, we just saw, Chris get those, kitchens and Jeff score those points. So it's kind of hard when that starts happening after you have that big of a point difference.
And I think if you're someone who only plays in like our team league, for example, and aren't used to playing these matches where you switch colors, I think when you talk to players who do this, you'll hear that a lot, that, at the turn, you either, maybe you do remain consistent, but for a lot of players, that's where it can become a bit more challenging to adjust. And so that can be something that's really difficult about the singles league specifically.
So Jeff just got, there's 5 on the board, -10 black. So Chris is now -5. And then we got 21 plus 8, 29. So I'm going to add that up. Hold on.
So, it's an unfortunate moment for it, for that pepperoni to show up here on the board. But like we said, they're taking some practice shots here. They're trying some things out. And so there was a lot scoring there for yellow. And we'll get an updated score from Missy in just a moment. And so here on this last frame, Chris is still putting up that kitchen bait. He's going for it, but we'll notice they're shooting their discs pretty quickly. They're kind of moving through. Jeff puts up a nice little high 8, which is hidden fairly nicely. Chris can still get to it, but let's see what he does. Unfortunately, the drift takes it towards the center line, and so we're looking at that 8 staying in.
So if I did the math right, it's 113 to -5. That's wild. That is a crazy score. But so you can tell they're just having fun now, doing some kitchens and trying to hit some things out. Both, fantastic players. Jeff really came out, gunning today, wanted to score. He wanted to win that $150. Oh, man. It's exciting. It got me really excited for singles leagues coming up. I gotta play well in practice. All right, so they got the fist bump. Final score. We'll have to go down there and look, but it looks like there's definitely a 10 and an 8. I'm gonna go check. You wanna?
Yeah, definitely. That 7 might also be in, so Missy's going to confirm that final score, but it's looking like 8 for yellow, which would give Jeff a total of 121. And Missy's going to give us a signal here to see if it's the 10 or the 17 for black. It is 17 for black, giving Chris 12. So assuming we've got this up here, we've got 121 to 12 for our final score. Again, just to run it back, Chris and Jeff, both fantastic players, both fantastic people in the community here at Royal Palms, and we are really just excited to see the two of them play each other. Bit of a tough game here, but we were glad to be here and be a part of it and talk y'all through some of the strategy things that we saw.
Thank you so much for joining today, and we'll do the wrap-up in just a moment. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us for a super exciting match between our friends Jeff and Chris. We are here to do the post-game interview with the winner, my friend Jeff, and we're going to ask him a couple questions about the game. And so, Jeff, we were wondering, how are you feeling about the match tonight?
I feel terrible. That was a blowout, and it didn't mean to get that bad. But I kind of feel good about winning. I'm not going to be honest. I got $150. Feels good to win another one of these things, and golden tangs.
We love to hear that. Golden tangs, baby. And so when you're looking back through this match, what are some tips or some tricks you might give to viewers that were watching, or maybe some shots you felt really good about that you could highlight here for us tonight?
Yeah, this court is crazy hard to play on. There's just like drift near these columns over here that kind of go in like different directions. And I was feeling that in the first 8 when I was playing black. It's especially bad on black, where like I'm hiding, I'm shooting, and it's curving this way, and the next shot it curves that way. So when you're black, like try not to do as much finesse stuff because it's really, really hard, and just come out here and like try to shoot some disc and figure this weird court out.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Well, congratulations on your advanced win.
Yeah, we did it, baby.
We did
Golden
it, baby.
tag. Thanks so much for watching Brooklyn Shuffleboard. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.
Bye.